So, hi everyone, my name is Eoghan Feighery, and here is my presentation from my file submission from my career project, Messap app, and I am also in a specialization of software development. Now, Messap app is an Android application that's designed as an all-in-one medical reminder app, similar to that of a Swiss Army knife with apps in a way. It is designed to be used for the general public, whether they are a young adult or an elderly person. The application allows users to register a user microphone to grab text acquired from audio files, similar to CamScanner or Google Translate's microphone option. If it can then copy and edit the resulting text from medications, prescriptions, and instructions outlined by chemists and GPs, which can then be added to either a Google Calendar entry to create a reminder to take a medication at a certain time, or if you just want to set a reminder on an alarm, we can have it go to a page to do so. Users can even save notes for their current diagnosis, contacts and prescribed medications, and even send emails and text messages to remind their family members that they took their meds or completed them. A problem that this application addresses is that with everyone now back in college and office buildings after the pandemic, they may end up forgetting to take their medications amidst the hustle and bustle of everyday life, and people have become a lot more conscious about their health as a result. They may end up forgetting to take their medications amidst some some people might also have dexterity issues in their hands, or they might struggle with writing and ability with their fingers. And for my research, while medical reminder applications are a dime a dozen online, not many of them have the option to record and grab text from audio files when a user triggers a microphone button. And this application can help users set medication reminders without having to worry about forgetting them entirely. The technologies that are used for developing the app was done with Android Studio, under the programming language of Java, and the databases I used for the app were real-time database for saving and updating user account detail, and using Cloud Firestore to store for the CRUD operations with the NodeMaker pages. In the architectural diagram that you see to the right of this text box, a user will register their account, which has been automatically saved into the Firebase real-time database. And that way, the database will be able to check for the user each time they log back into the app. And even if a user makes edits to the profile, real-time will acknowledge these edits and update them accordingly to their designated entries. And the same logic will also apply to the Firestore database as used to save CRUD notes, that's what you see here. And the CRUD terminology also applies to this as well, where Firestore will know if a specific user made and only to that user alone. Firestore will then analyze the table for each of the database fields, and depending on if a user, it will ask according if a user edited or removed a particular note. For testing and evaluation, I use white box testing, which involves sample test case data designed for 5 dummy user accounts, and also for the CRUD note functionalities. Each time a note was added to the database, Firestore will know to save a note under the current user ID to prevent any cybersecurity or data breaches. For the user profile, if your user decides to edit a certain part of their profile, then the real-time database will update the table entry to better reflect this. Now, each time I programs a new function into the app, I always make sure to test it out on my phone. So that way I can judge if a function was working or if they need a bit more coding in order to make it function properly. And this even held true to the text recognizer function operating better on phones than it did in the Android Studio emulator. And after conducting all the test cases, all of the functionalities, including the registration and login, ones were functioning as they were intended to be, and the same went for the email and text message maker functions, and the calendar intent option as well. I also took the liberty of using the website called Sync, which is scan and analyze code repositories for any security vulnerabilities and other issues. And to my delight, they were working in a way that there wasn't any issues in the code files or the dependency builds. Now I'll test out the application in action. Which I'm using on my phone, since phones is a lot faster compared to doing it just inside the emulator itself. So of course, as you can see, when you start up of the app, you'll be taken to the registration screen, and these buttons here will allow you to switch between login screen, and registration screen, depending on whether or not you register into the app. Now, if I click on this button here, you'll get notifications saying you need to fill an entry. So in this case, I'll use this dummy entry. But if I click on this button here with age, it'll just be missing. So it will check if you do so age is higher than 0, because nobody stays 0 forever, 0 years old forever. So let's do a dummy age of 111. Type in your gender as an A, with dummy email as follows. And now for the password, if you enter a password that's less than 7 characters, like this will show up instead. So it's important to do so. And if I click on the button now, you'll be taken to the login screen. Screen will just be asking for your email address and your password instead. Set to confirm that. This also rings true for the Firebase database, because we'll go back to check if the user actually exists in order to log them in. So if I type the password in again and press login, voila, you're on the home page. Now, if you enter the password and email address inaccurately, it'll give you a message saying that they're not correct. And if I go into the Firebase database, as you can see here, the new user has been added into the fields, as you can see here. And in the authentication section of Firebase, they've also been given a user ID as well. Well, now we'll move on to the bigger meat of things, shall we say? So here I'll start with the save diagnosis note entries. Now if I click, this button here will be used to navigate back to the home page for easier navigation. And if I click on this button here, it'll take you to a blank note page. Now it's important to note that when you're creating a note for the first time, you have to have a title in it, because if you click on this button to save it, you'll just get this little error saying that a title needs to be added to save it properly. If I go back in here, if I add a title in here now and click the button again, then the note will appear near in the main page. And if I go back and if I refresh the Firestore page, look into go into here, just give them just each at the right user ID. Then, as you can see here, the note is saved onto the page. Now, the user ID is used to ensure that no matter what happens, if anything at all, they'll always see the notes that they saved and no one else's. So if I go back in here again, I'll be able to update it like this, and then the flag will show up to show that it's in the editing stage. And contacts, the same thing will apply here. Here, just write some dummy information. But if I click save, this will occur instead. And then add here, and it will be saved like so. Now, of course, when you edit a note, you'll be taken to this section here. You'll see a red sentence that says remove note. Now, of course, if I go back into here, go back into Firestore, you'll see that a note has been saved for the contacts. But if I remove a note, it'll be taken out. And the same logic applies through all tree CRUD functionality pages. The same for here. Here too. 2, 2, 2, add a title to ensure the note will be saved, and the note should be saved like so. So, as you can see here. Here, pretty handy, huh? And of course, the same also applies if you remove a note, then it'll be taken out of the database. Now I'll move on to how to edit a profile. Now, when you first open up the profile page, you should be able to see all of the saved data that'll be taken from the database based in real time, and then just display in the proper fields. Now, say I wanted to edit the password somewhat. So all of this here will be edited text, which applies to all matters, and then we change the name gender to gender fluid, and say for 112, and if we click save, then the profile will be updated to reflect the new changes, as you can see here. And even if a database, it'll be updated to reflect this change. And now to the piece de resistance, as you will, the text recognizer to speech function. Now, of course, you'll be taken to this page where you'll be able to see a blank screen and 2 buttons, one to copy to a clipboard on your phone, and then the microphone button. So if I click on the microphone button here, you'll be given this and this microphone prompt to speak. So let's try something else. Take twice a day with water and food. And as you can see here, it'll capture all of the text from the audio files to save it onto the edit text page. Now say your GP recommends you do alteration with your medication. It should say take only a medication once a day. So even if it makes an error when you speak into it, you can still fix it like so. And then I can copy this onto the clipboard, and you'll get a little notification to do so. And now to the Google Calendar. Now, of course, you'll be given this little pop-up when you click on the button the first time. But luckily, you can set it. But for convenience, you can just set it to always or just once. In this instance, I'll use just once, and then as I press and hold, go into clipboard, paste it onto here, here, and then here. So say I want the alarm to trigger at 7 o'clock. Clock, just clock, and then save like so. Now, of course, you don't need to wait for the alarm trigger, so we can just move on. Or if you just want to create an alarm, you can either activate through here, trigger the button here, or do it through the home page. And as you can see, the alarm has triggered to say I need to take my medication with food and water at 7 o'clock. So back to the home page. If I click on this little stopwatch icon, I'll be taken to this page where you'll be able to set an alarm. So if I click in the middle of a clock like so, I can set it to whatever time I want. So let's say I want to set to 6:59, 9 p.m. and then I can just adjust the arms like so. And you can even go back and forth between the hours and minutes if you want. All right. So if you don't want to set an alarm, you can just cancel it. Or if you do want to set an alarm, just click on this button here and then exit back to the home page. Next up is to create an email. Now, of course, if you try to click on the format email button without anything else in it, you had to make sure you at least have a subject or an subject or recipient for the email. So let's just say email at email.com. reminder, just took my meds there. And if I format it and click on Gmail, it'll be saved in a draft like so. Now, of course, you have to make sure that you actually send it in order to save a draft. Oh, and as you can see here, the little alarm reminder triggered the alarm successfully. Perfect. And of course, you can check out your Gmail for messages to be sure. And now for the text message maker part. Now the thing is, you need to type in a number, and then send your message to whoever gets it. This is pretty much a similar logic to that of the email maker page. Now, of course, when you click on send text, you'll get this little question here saying to allow them to access our contacts and even view and send messages. If you click on don't allow, you'll be get this notification saying that you're denied permission. And but if you click on allow, then the message will send. Send as follows. Now we'll do an even deeper dive into the code. Logic to see why things act the way they are. All right, so starting with the CRUD functionality in the NodeMaker pages. So as you can see here, this is used to take all of the data, used to take the XML file aspects, but this case being the title and the content of a node, and it uses the attend object to put them inside and to set them to a particular ID. Now the snapshot here is basically a snippet of saved data. So basically, 10 saved nodes will equal 10 snapshots worth of data. And of course, it'll be saved to a specific ID, as you can see here. And this also applies for diagnosis and medication data too. And this will add the data, add the saved node onto the page, so that'll just look like a rectangular shape. And of course, this little box thing that I added for the other for the other CRUD functionalities, only to be used to send a notification message to the user to say that the node has been saved, or edited, or deleted. And this is where method here will be used to call on the Firestore database to acquire here and send it to a user ID so that they only see their own notes and not someone else's. And be sent to a specific database path collection. And now in Alarm Maker, or as you can see here, this is used to help set an alarm time. If this is used to help set up the hours, the minutes, and the seconds for the reminder set. And this will be used. So when a user clicks on the set alarm button, this will be used to help confirm the alarm has been set, or if not, this is to let the user know that it's canceled. Now, of course, the interesting thing with the Alarm Maker page is that it actually has a partnership with Alarm Receiver. This is uses the broadcast receiver functionality to be able to receive a query from Alarm Maker. So we'll go something like, hey, this user set up his reminder for this particular time. Can you set up a notification for it, please? Thank you. So basically, this is more of a partnership between the two pages. One cannot exist without the other, because if that were the case, then this entire functionality would just be rendered useless. Login and register can be a bit interchangeable in terms of their functionalities, but there's also a key difference. As you can see here, registration tends to be able to save a new user for the first time. So that takes the text fields for each required credential and saves it to be able to save in a user table. And these if else statements are used to check if the fields are empty, because obviously they can't really save blank spaces, and also to check if the age is higher than 0, or if the password is longer. longer, or if email is written in the correct format. And this Firebase authentication is used to help to add extra authentication and security to a user. So as you can see here in the Firebase database, it'll be saved into the users table in real time and set to for current user ID. And this logic also applies for login, except it's also to confirm, except it's more to confirm that the user has now re-entered the app. Yep. And as you can see here, the code is very much identical in terms of reuse. It's just how reuse is the main difference. Now, of course, in profile, well, the real-time database entry is used again to be able to save the data, to capture the data from a user table, and to be able to set it into the proper parameters in the main page. So, of course, if the user here does exist, then the text variables will be used to store the profile credentials as such. And this is the only way, and this is pretty much the guaranteed way you can get a snapshot data and to be able to save it onto the profile page. For the edit profile page is it's a bit more beefier compared to the main profile page. Since while it does call on the user table entry, it actually goes a bit further than that. And as you can see here, a user object is used to help initialize the variables needed for the updates to be confirmed onto the database itself, and is also used as a value to help with it. Now, this profile change request is used to update the user profile and to display the username, and to be able to set it to a build. And it will also, and the Firebase user object will be then used to help edit the profile with a change request variable. And once it's all confirmed, the attend object will return to the main profile page with the newly added edits. Now onto speech to text. As you can see here, this requested access code is required to ensure proper functionality for speech to text recognition, and this also uses the attend object, which is triggered when the user activates the microphone button. Now, what's interesting here is that you recognize your intent to be able to help fine-tune the audio results. It's also just something very plausible, and to help display onto the main edit text page. And this will be the methods used to help gain and require text, and uses an array list object to be able to get all of the data and put it within the text field itself. Pretty handy, right? All right. Now this is also a similar thing for the text maker since it uses the Android manifest permission, which is to send SMS and to allow people to receive it. Now, of course, this specific here as well be used to trigger. Here's to help trigger an message to be sent. Here says it needs a telephone and message in order to be able to send a message. Otherwise, this will say, please enter something, please. Or if not, it'll just be a permission denied. And the same will also apply for the email maker, except this will bring you over into Gmail. Now, of course, you will be asked to log into Gmail if you're starting up for the first time, but you'll just be asked about it once, and that's really it. I would say the difficult aspects of my project overall was code optimization and research. While Android Studio was a technology that was within my wheelhouse, some of the code layouts were a bit finicky. So if a certain layout was used, I had to position the elements carefully, otherwise they'll just be out of reach, or it has to constantly scroll just to find it. Research was also a bit difficult since some video tutorials were done in Kotlin, which wasn't within my range of programming expertise. So it did become a bit of a treasure hunt to find real-time and even Cloud Firestore tutorials that use Java. The innovation of my project is the speech-to-text recognizer functionality. While, like I said, there's no shortage of medical reminder apps out in the Play stores for Apple and Google, but there weren't any that had a microphone in the vein of YouTube or even Google Translate's microphone functionalities. And it's also a handy functionality for users to want a quick reminder for medications, and also helps for users who may have problems with their dexterity dexterities, or your hands might not have strong mobility. Alright, in the initial start of development, I had planned to use a image-to-text recognizer function like what Camscanner has at the moment, which would have served a similar purpose to the speech-to-text recognizer one. But the former was actually very hard to implement, and I couldn't make it work in the way I wanted to. But then I realized the latter tech actually existed and found it to be a lot easier to program. I also did want to use real-time database for the CRUD functionalities for the NoteMaker pages, but I found that in each user session, the state entries will just carry over into the next one, which will cause cybersecurity risks. So I switched over to Cloudflare Store, which managed to help alleviate this. The text, message, and email makers would have been added to the CRUDless pages, but after some thought, I realized it probably would have caused a lot of instability and a lot of difficulties trying to implement it into the CRUD pages, so I decided to give them their own separate pages, and the alarm clock reminder was added to give users more flexibility for what type of reminder they want to make. Testing for the app involved creating test data for user recognition and login parameters, and for the NoteMaker functionalities, and even throughout the app's development cycle, tested out the functionalities after completing them. This way, I will be able to confirm whether or not the functionality is working, and even decide if it's worth keeping in the app or not, which was a common theme throughout the development of the app. Now, if I had to start over the application again from scratch, I would have also considered developing this app for iOS devices along with Android ones. At the start, I intended to do just that for both versions, but my supervisor advised me that it wouldn't be feasible within the time frame to complete the app. And I probably have, but it is an option I would consider in the near future. I also would have been able to add the image-to-text recognizer technology so that users can freely choose between that or the speech-to-text one. And I would probably have used real-time database for the CRUD entry functionalities, because while it is confirmed that it is possible to do so, I haven't been able to find any videos that actually tutorialize this very well. But hopefully that might change in the near future on YouTube. Thank you. And hopefully I managed to clarify everything. Any queries or any doubts you might have about this application, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks again.